All right, guys, before the start of today's episode, I need to do my patriotic duty and pay off a LoudMouth bet. This one with our very own Tony Fagnano. I, of course, very smartly at the time, took Brandon Moreno. He took, I don't remember, Alejandro Pantoja, I believe is his full name. And the fight went pretty similar to their tough rematch. Except Pantoja didn't get a finish this time, so good for Moreno to look much, much, much better in his rematch. JK, Brandon Moreno got absolutely annihilated by Pantoja. And not only did he get annihilated, but I do believe a judge awarded Moreno a round. And as someone who had money on Moreno and had bet on him with my arch nemesis Tony, Moreno did not win a single round of that fight. So I don't know what that judge was smoking. He did not even come close to winning a round. What am I going to say? Tony hit me with a tweet. I'll read it to everybody. Hashtag UFC Chili free. Cashing max bet on Pantoja, $500. And winning another at LoudMouth MMA bet versus the Bob Sapp of Fight Picks, priceless. If you're wondering who the Bob Sapp of Fight Picks is, if you couldn't pick up on context clues, it's apparently me. And again, there's nothing I can do to combat that. I will say that this is how you know Tony doesn't win very often, because when he does win, he immediately takes the Twitter sphere to let us all know. He does need to remind us that he wins. But on this day, he was most certainly the bigger man, both figuratively and literally. JK, I'm fatter than Tony is, but I'm just trying my best to come up with any type of slight that I possibly can. But I need to stop doing these stupid bets. I always win them. JK.
You got a gun, got a big gun, got a gun, it's not a real one, and all you ever think about is running away, all you ever think about is trying to stay away from me.
And welcome back to another episode of the LoudMouth MMA podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Steele. Today, we have ourselves UFC Liverpool, correct? It is Liverpool?
Correct.
I don't keep up with that as much as I should, even though this has been... Is this their first time in Liverpool or just the first time in a while?
First time.
First time, correct? Okay, which is pretty cool. Hence why it is headlined by Liverpool's own Darren Till. And Darren Till also speaks Portuguese. And I remember hearing the reason why one time. Do any of you know?
He trained and lived in Brazil for quite a long time.
Because he is like completely fluent. Like not like he knows some Portuguese. Like he has restaurant Portuguese. Like no, he like legitimately is fluent in Portuguese.
I think Sean might know better but I think he spent a large part of his childhood out there.
Interesting.
Or some part of his life. I
just thought he trained there for a long time. I'm not totally familiar with the backstory other than he speaks good Portuguese.
Yeah, I mean, legit. So
I know he was out there for a very long time. Like it's not like he took a vacation.
Yeah.
It was like, I'm just going to go to Brazil for a couple weeks. Like he was out there for years.
Yeah. Well, this fight card is a bit top heavy. I'm sure we'll get to that as we are, breaking down the entire card. Per usual, we break down every single event. I might not be the host of these moving forward. We'll talk more about that, but this will definitely still be on the network, and I will give more information as it comes. Breaking news. I probably will not be hosting these for that much longer. But nothing. Sean and Tony are still here to stay, so don't worry about that. And,
are we?
Yes, and it'll still be at the same time slot. Everything's going to be good to go. We'll talk about it more when that comes. Let me give you some information about the card. This is actually a Sunday morning/afternoon card, so it looks like the main card kicks off at 1 p.m. Eastern. So that's the main card, which means the prelims start as early as, I want to say 10:30. It
was going to be 10. It's probably going to be 10:30 now.
I actually didn't have UFC.com pulled up so I could check. They have the times right there. Yeah, by the way, I don't ever really plug because it's weird to plug UFC.com. But if you ever are interested, I mean, if you go to UFC.com, it's pretty well laid out as far as when stuff starts. So they still have 10 a.m., but I think that'll change. Have they already removed? Nope, they have not removed it yet. So that's why. So once they remove this, I assume they're going to kick one of these fights up to the main card. One of the prelim fights are going to kick up to the main, and then we're going to lose a fight in the early fight past prelims. So let me give everyone, if you don't know, Davey Grant and Danny Bermudez has been pulled off the card. It looks like it's Davey Grant had a staph infection. That looks to be what the reason is. So not a huge loss. I mean,
Disagree.
it's not a huge loss from a fan perspective. Sean, please give me the DraftKings.
DraftKings and betting. I had a 4-unit bet on Bermudez at -225 because he was going to take down Davey Grant, who couldn't stop a Damian Stasiak submission, and he was going to get subbed out, which is good for DraftKings and betting. And I hope they rebook this fight even better, not in England, and I'll bet Danny Bermudez again. But
a lot of parlays were just canceled. I know that.
Yeah, I got him at -220 pretty early. The line right now is or was. Let's see if Best Fight Picks pulled it down. It was up to -265, and it was going to keep going higher, I think.
Anything else about this card before we start talking about it? Like I said, it's 1 p.m. on Sunday. That's the big thing. Just remember, it is Sunday morning / afternoon.
I guess it's interesting because they're doing. I mean, not that this is like completely relevant to UFC Liverpool, but Bellator is doing an event in England, same time zone, and is tape delaying it while UFC Liverpool will be live.
It's a joke. It's a joke that Bellator is an organization and can't figure out how to not tape delay their goddamn fights.
Well,
and it's a landmark event, Bellator 200.
Yeah, the biggest issue. So
landmark.
The tape delay is ridiculous in and of itself with Bellator 200. That's an absurd thing that they do. But it's because they're on a network that's what has to happen. Like, I get it. It's above our pay grades. The issue of all cards to tape delay for the entire country, of all cards, it's Bellator 200, a card that I will not watch because I'm going to get the results of the fights. It's going to happen. So I'm not going to watch it.
It's being broadcast live in England, so we are getting the results.
I'm not. Listen, I'm not. Why would I get the results of Bellator 200 and then watch it later? Why would anyone do that? So, I mean, even if you're like the biggest fight fan in the world, like, it's a Bellator card. Like, I don't know. That's really crazy to me. I guess I'm glad we at least got to mention that for a second. I kind of forgot that was happening. I mean, it's sad because like Michael Venom Page is a guy who I've always been fascinated with, and I would really love to see this fight. But I'm like, I'm gonna know what happened. Like, I don't even know if I'm all that interested at this point. So I don't know. We'll see. Let's start talking about this card. First fight. Let's start in the first fight on the main card. Move up to the main event, and then we'll start at the main event on the prelims, or work our way down. So the first fight of the main card is Eric Spicely taking on Darren Stewart. Eric Spicely, you basically know exactly what you're going to be getting from him, so it's whether or not he can do it. And then Darren Stewart is a little bit more of an unknown commodity, although I would say he's kind of a mediocre guy at best. So Sean, please get us started.
I think mediocre is probably an overstatement. I am stunned Darren Stewart is still in the UFC, and he got a new contract. He's been subbed his last two times out, one of them by Carl Robertson, who is a glory kickboxer who just got subbed by Cesar Ferreira, and Julian Marquez, in a great back-and-forth exciting fight. That's probably why he got signed, or re-signed. But that's a product of Julian Marquez being an exciting fighter, nothing Darren Stewart did, because he was in a stinker with Franco Barbosa before that. He can't stop a takedown. He's okay on the feet. Spicely's got a good single leg. I think Spicely will get him down and sub him out. The line on Spicely, he's a pretty big favorite right now. He is, it's come down a little bit, -175. He's plus 100 to win inside the distance. I am going to bet Spicely by sub at plus money for a unit whenever that prop drops at my sports book. Stewart, I don't think he can keep this fight standing, and that's plays right into Spicely's hands. Now, if Spicely can get the fight to the ground, if Stewart can keep it upright, he was just knocked out by Gerald Mearshart, who is a better striker than Darren Stewart. But I have to imagine if it stays on the feet, Stewart will have the advantage. That's why, for me, it's a sub bet. I just don't think Stewart can keep it there. I don't think Stewart's any good. I know he's fighting at home. I think Spicely gets a sub here.
Tony?
Yeah, I don't think we have to overthink this that much. It's a guy with terrible submission defense versus a very good Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu ace, I guess you could call him. I might have overstated his grappling in the past. I think I actually said that he would out-grapple Shoeface, which looks really bad in hindsight. But nonetheless, excellent grappler. Expect a submission finish.
Fantastic. Let's move on up. Davey Grant and Bermudez has canceled. So we have Jason Knight taking on Makwan. I know it's Americani, but I don't know how to pronounce his first name.
Makwan.
Oh, I was right. Makwan.
Yeah.
Makwan. I keep wanting to put an R in there. Man, Jason Knight, there once upon a time, kind of seemed like he was unstoppable. It felt like he was going to be him and Chaz Skelly. I just really was like, all right, these are the two guys that are going to be surging this division. And then, look at us now. Jason Knight gets the win over Skelly. So you're like, okay, this is the better prospect. He then goes on to lose to Ricardo Lamas. Not the biggest deal in the world. Ricardo Lamas is a monster. Then he goes on to lose to Gabriel Benitez, biting him in the finger in the process. So I don't know what to make of Jason Knight at this point. In Americani, I've expressed my sentiments about his fighting style before. I don't know. I don't know what to make of this fight. I kind of wanted to think that Jason Knight is going to get back on the winning train here. I just really don't like the fight he's coming off of. If he was coming off the Lamas fight, I would feel perfectly fine right now. I'm going Jason Knight all day. But that last fight was really eye-opening, the fight he had with Benitez. So that's my biggest concern here is what Jason Knight are we going to get. So, Tony, talk to me. For me, the pick is Jason Knight.
Yeah, I mean, setback aside, I mean, I'm still a huge fan of Jason Knight. I think, what he offers, excellent jiu-jitsu, incredible heart, as we've seen many times. Might be a little bit more limited in the stand-up department than we had originally thought. But overall, I like the matchup. I'll definitely not one that I will be betting or anything like that. And especially I think Amir Khani has been out for, God, how long has he been out? A while, basically. And I'm not really sure what he's going to look like coming into this fight. He is the hometown fighter. I know Sean has a whole thing about not liking the hometown fighters, but I don't really see it playing a factor either way, unless we get some weird judging stuff going on. But overall, I just see Knight being able to persevere early, and get some kind of submission finish.
Yeah, I've been back and forth in this fight, and Makwan Americani took on his last fight, Arnold Allen. That was also Arnold Allen's last fight. It was about a year ago, so a long layoff, nothing. Years like the max I'm really even somewhat comfortable with, but I don't know what the reason was for that layoff. With Jason Knight, I was just reading today that he was sick before the Mowgli Benitez fight and shouldn't have fought, or it's hard to I take that stuff with a grain of salt, but something I had read today. I bet Makwan Americani early in the week at plus 140 for one unit just because I thought the line was off. I thought this should have been a pick'em and there was some value there. I thought it was a pick 'em, and I was leaning Americani. I still am leaning that way, but the more tape I watch, the more I get concerned that this is going to be a grappling match, which is where I want it. But Makwan Americani he gives up position. Like the problem with the Arnold Allen fight is they were scrambling back and forth. Americani would get a dominant position and give it right back up. And against Jason Knight, who's got a better control game, I don't know how that's going to translate here. They're both good grapplers. Again, I think this is a perfect matchup. I think it should be about minus 110 apiece. I do think there is some value in the plus line. It's down to plus 130 right now. If it stays standing, I think Americani is a little better on the feet. Technically, the problem is Jason Knight is the pressure fighter, keeps moving forward, and has that heart and is less likely to gas out as the fight goes on. So I'm less confident than I was early in the week. Again, Americani being at home, I like how he reacts and scrambles, even though he gives up the position quickly afterwards. I'm wondering if Knight will be able to hold him in guard and Americani will do some work on the ground. Or if it stays standing, he should be able to win some early rounds. So close fight. I'm less confident than I was early in the week, but still I'll take Makwan Americani by decision. And what I think is going to be a fun fight if you like grappling and not like hold me down wrestling, Colby Covington grappling, back and forth style grappling.
Well,
hey, Kyle, are we like going in a particular order here? Or
we are. We're starting on the first fight of the main card and moving our way up to the main event. And then when we talk about the main event, we're going to start on the headliner, on the prelims, and work our way down. It's better than like burning everything out at the very beginning and then half of our listeners just tuning out because we just talked about the main event. But it's also better than starting at the beginning of the card and then spending way too much time on prelim fights we don't need to talk about. So to me, this is the best order, but it's just we've done this before and I've had complaints, but
that makes a lot of sense.
I just think this is the best order. I think this one makes that way you spend the most time talking about the main card, but you're not starting with the main event, and then you kind of have to blow through the prelims because you talk too much. So, which is what we want. So, thank you. I'm glad Tony approves. Tony, we don't agree on much, Tony. So, anytime I can find some common ground with you.
My notes are completely jumbled up now, but.
All right. Speaking of Arnold Allen, let's talk about Arnold Allen taking on Mads Burnell, a fight that I have. If I could have the most vanilla opinion on this fight imaginable, other than the fact that I really think Arnold Allen wins. But as far as breaking it down, good luck. So, Sean, kicking it over to you.
I have a bet on this fight. We'll leave with that. I have 3 units on Arnold Allen at minus 260. I've actually seen some people.
I figured he'd be higher.
That's what I thought. I've seen some people in the MMA betting community picking and betting on Mads Burnell, which I think is interesting. He is a power BJJ guy. He's a big, strong guy with good Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I don't think I have a hunch he's not going to make weight. He missed by 5 pounds last time. If he makes weight, I think he's going to gas. He was breathing hard at the end of the Mike Santiago fight, if I recall. I think Arnold Allen is just the overall better fighter. Mads Burnell might have a grappling advantage, but Arnold Allen, we saw in the Makwan Americani fight. He's technically good. He's good in scrambles. I don't think Mads Burnell is going to be able to hold him down. And in that type of wrestling, I think Burnell is just going to gas himself out. And then on the feet, Allen is by far the better striker, cleaner boxing. I think he pieces up Burnell on the feet and can keep the fight standing long enough that it's not a problem, or in that process of getting back up, tiring Burnell out. So I like Arnold Allen a fair amount here, and minus 260 is where I got the number right now. Since I have it up, I should pull it up. It's up to minus 280, so it's gone up a little bit, but
not all that. I mean, it's still very reasonable.
The problem is just Burnell is so big, and I'll be concerned if he pulls a Michel Prajeris and comes in at 152, like he didn't even try to cut weight. I'll be a little concerned come fight day, but I'm not going to hold that to Mads Burnell until he does that.
Tony.
Yeah, I'm aboard the Arnold Allen train. This is like the Americani. I mean, well, obviously they were the last time they fought each other over a year ago. Another question right there. How are they going to look after a year off? Same kind of thing. But I mean, from every time I've seen Arnold Allen actually in the cage, which hasn't been very much or very often, it's been extremely impressive, and a lot more so than his opponent. Like Sean said, yeah, much more technical, whereas Burnell is kind of relying on just brute strength, get you down and hold you down, which he did meet power on power versus Prajeris, as someone Sean just mentioned. Power versus power was able to get Prajeris down and submit him, so that's a little scary. The fact that he's even capable of doing something like that. So we'll see. I'm not going to bet the fight, but I am taking Arnold Allen.
Next up, we have Neil. This is our co-main. We have Neil Magny taking a short notice fight against Craig White, who bounced out. Who was it? Why is it slipping my mind?
It's supposed to be Neil Magny and Gunny Nelson.
Gunnar Nelson. That's what it was. I think that would have had very different results than what's going to happen here. Neil Magny now versus UFC debutant Craig White. Is anyone picking Craig? I do know. I like this guy. From what I was saying, is anyone picking Craig White to beat Neil Magny?
Can I read a little bit? You can go on, but can I read a little bit of our prospect expert over at MMA Today's?
Of course you can. I would love that more than ever. Please plug it fully.
It's not very
glowing.
Yeah, it's not a glowing review, but it's informative. So let me just pull this up. He says White isn't the best fighter out of the UK and probably not inside this top 20, but still very dangerous. And if you look at his last 5 wins, the opponents held a combined record of 47-14. White doesn't really like to stand and trade, but when he does, he has a rapid attack of kicks and knees. Downside of his striking is too aggressive, leaves himself open, and the results of him getting knocked out. The best place for White to be is on the mat, off his back in his opponent's guard. And then how does he get there? Well, with awful takedown defense. He says he doesn't think he's ever seen him defend a takedown in all the tape he's watched. And maybe that's because he's confident off his back, or maybe because his takedown defense is really bad. He does have a knack for the triangle choke. It seems to be his go-to move on how he's finished a lot of his fights. He does not think that he will be a future ranked fighter or have much of a future in the UFC title contention or anything like that. But just basically watch out for the triangle if it goes into his guard.
Well, there we go. Thank you. That was and who writes that?
Sean Bitter.
Thank you very much. Other Sean. Yeah, that's right. Other Sean.
That sums it up really well. He's got 7 losses in the UK regional scene. I was going to say when we were introducing the card, you can call this card UFC Liverpool / Cage Warriors Plus.
Cage Warriors Plus. We get it. Like ESPN Plus, it's Cage Warriors Plus.
Pretty much, and we're gonna get into it.
So really good. That's astute.
Right?
You nailed it.
So as we get into some of the undercard, you're going to see a lot of I'm going to say, well, they fought in Cage Warriors, making their debut from Cage Warriors, and this is one of those guys, but he's just not very good. Props to him for stepping up. He is aggressive on the feet. That's where he's live. If this fight lasts more than 90 seconds, he's screwed. He needs to pull an Alex Hernandez over Beneil Dariush, and I don't think he's as good as Alex Hernandez. That being said, that's really the only chance he has. Magny is criminally underrated, as I've said a few times. Body lock takedowns, that he wore out Carlos Condit with, which Kyle told me I was crazy. That was one of my few loudmouth bet wins. But Neil Magny should sub him in the first round is the pick here. Line is too ridiculous to bet on. Magny's almost at minus 700 last time I looked. I think it was 700.
Let me just say, when you said that Neil Magny is criminally underrated,
he is. People think he's dog shit. Because people think he's so bad.
He is dog shit. Can I
No.
I'm not going to do it now. I'm not going to. I wish I had sound clips that I could play, like little drops, because I would drop in the Fred poop noise when you said that he was criminally underrated. I just wanted to drop in the.
You should totally have a soundboard.
I know. I need to. I've said this. I've said this for 2 years and I haven't done it.
I mean, okay. He lost to Lorenz Larkin. He's got a win over Kelvin Gastelum. You think the world of Kelvin Gastelum, don't you?
I mean, not really. I mean, I'm not like all in on Kelvin Gastelum by any means.
He's clearly a top 15 guy, and people come out.
Sure.
People think he's dog. People act like he's dog shit. He's not. He's got wins over Tim Means, Garcia.
This is the reason why people think Neil Magny's dog shit. He's going to win this fight. This isn't about him not winning this fight.
Right.
Okay. Here's the reason why Neil Magny is dog shit. He should be champion. He has some of the best physical attributes that you could have in that weight class. But him and Stefan Struve are basically like short bus when it comes to using their length to their advantage. And it's absolutely insane. Like, his inability to use his length and range to his advantage in a fight is second to fucking none. Like, he's the worst at it other than Stefan Struve in the UFC.
He should be better, but he's come a long way. He was dog shit on The Ultimate Fighter. He's made a lot of
He's like 62 years old. I don't know if you could come a long way at that point.
He's 30.
Is he really 30?
He's 30.
Did he look old as hell?
He has terrible fight IQ to go along with everything else.
Yeah, the fight IQ is really what, like, that's kind of what I'm hinting at, is like, it's the bad fight IQ. Like, he has such this tangible gift that he just doesn't use.
Well, it's not just that he has length that he doesn't know how to use. It's like he just doesn't have fight IQ, like, period. Like, with everything. Wrestling, like, how to win a round, like, how to finish a round, how to take advantage of an opponent's weaknesses. It just seems like he's just lost in there. And, like, he's gotten by with sheer talent and ability, basically.
Yeah.
I just want to clarify. I'm not saying Neil Magny is going to be a future champion. I'm just tired of people shitting on him like he should be out of the UFC.
I see him as a great talent that doesn't have the smarts to go along with it.
To be champion. Yeah, I'll give you that. That's totally fair.
All right, let's move on to our main event.
Let's all get aboard the hype train. Let's go.
Let's go.
Choo choo. Is it pulling out of the station? All right, we have
Steven. And it's going to crash into a fucking ditch.
We have Stephen Thompson.
Train sound.
We have Stephen Thompson taking on Darren Till. I pray to the Lord, to Jehovah, Muhammad, whoever you pray, Jesus, whoever you pray to, Buddha, that Tony is taking Darren Till here. Please, Tony, say you're taking Darren Till.
I am not. No.
Damn it. All right. You can kick us off. You can kick us off.
I'll say this, though. I do really hope that Darren Till wins this fight, even though I would lose quite a bit of money. As a fan of the sport, somebody who watches UFC, I just
better for the division if that happens.
A Wonder Boy win does absolutely nothing for anybody, and just stagnates this division even more. So of course, Darren Till winning, best possible outcome for all parties involved, except for those gambling on Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, as I am. I think a lot of people are oversimplifying this matchup to just like, oh, it's two like kickboxers fighting each other, and Stephen Thompson's the better kickboxer, so he's going to win this, and he's more experienced. But I think there's a lot more to it than that. Both these guys have really awkward styles and incorporate things that you just don't see a lot. Aren't used very often in MMA, I should say. Like Stephen Thompson is a black belt in Japanese jiu-jitsu, not Brazilian jiu-jitsu. Till uses a very odd blend, kind of his own weird blend of Muay Thai / karate. I don't even know what to call it, really. But it's like everything he throws, almost everything left. He throws the left kick and then he'll throw a left hand, which is not something you see very often or something you'll be taught if you ever take a Muay Thai class. And I don't know. There's a lot of things going on around this fight. The fact that it's in Liverpool, two counter strikers always seems to be a recipe for disaster, or a potential recipe for disaster where you have kind of a standoff, that Woodley Woodley Wonder Boy kind of fight where both guys are just not gonna pull the trigger. And then also just the fact that MMA judges are terrible at scoring fights for counterpunches. So who knows if this goes to a decision and Till wins a split decision in Liverpool. Can you imagine the outrage there from all the conspiracy theorists? I don't know. I'm picking the reasons that I'm picking. I'm going way too long. Reasons I'm picking Wonder Boy is his footwork. I think is miles ahead of Till. I saw him outwork Rory McDonald in the striking game with his footwork, and that was probably one of the most impressive things I've seen. I've seen him shut down Masvidal's takedowns, which I'm not putting past Till to pull off something, to try to pull something like that. Go for a takedown. I think even though Wonder Boy isn't known for his grappling, that he could stuff that or potentially get back to his feet once he does get taken down. And I just see him, either winning a late stoppage or a decision.
All right, let me talk for a moment before I kick it over to Sean. I'm not going to go super in depth here. I think the way that I really see this fight going, so let me give my best prediction. I think Darren Till is not going to be able to play the game. So Woodley's able to play the game, right? That's why Rory McDonald fight was so boring, because Rory was able to play the game. That's why the Woodley fight was so boring, because Woodley was able to play the game. Woodley won, Rory McDonald did not. But still, they were able to kind of play the game and pick and choose. And I don't think Darren Till is going to be able to do that. I think what's going to happen is he's going to get frustrated come round 2, and he's going to start trying to swarm. And when he starts trying to swarm, Stephen Thompson's going to catch that boy. Now, listen, one of the issues with karate, one of the reasons why karate doesn't necessarily match up super well against boxing, of course, is that when you stifle, when you get in real close and you choke, right, not physically choke, but I'm talking about choking their movement, it renders a lot of it useless. But Stephen Thompson showed in the Jorge Masvidal fight that he does have the ability to go on the outside, to continue to back up. His movement is so much... His movement is incredible, and it always has been. But my concern was, what does that movement look like with a legitimate striker like a guy like Masvidal? And he basically just schooled him. I mean, honestly, just took him to class for a couple rounds. I think Darren Till is going to get antsy. I think it's going to start rushing in, and I think in the process, he's either going to get caught or he's going to just start giving up rounds by just pure frustration. The other thing is the 5 rounds. It's a big deal here. Stephen Thompson's done it quite a bit. I think that's also important. So I think Stephen Thompson wins this fight. Darren Till has a hype train beyond belief. I'm kind of shocked that so many people are picking him and have been so high on him. It seems to be more of a casual, not casuals in the sense of like a normal casual, but there's like tiers of MMA fan as well. Right, and I call the lower tier casuals as well, because they basically are the guys who are in like the MMA Facebook groups, right? So they're not quite casuals, but they post real casual shit about Conor McGregor being the greatest fighter of all time. You know what I mean, like that kind of thing. All those guys are all in on Darren Till, and I don't think that's what we're going to see here. But I do think Darren Till is incredible, and if anyone's going to beat Stephen Thompson here, it could absolutely be Darren Till. I just really don't see it. So, Sean, please.
Yeah, the line on Darren Till is going a little crazy from the casuals betting. He opened up as a plus 125 underdog. Starting last night, a bunch of Englishmen got really drunk and ran to their local book, and the line's now up to minus 125. And I think it's going to keep getting higher because they can bet in England. The fight's in England. England guy, Liverpool guy in his hometown. I suspect you can probably even that price will go up and you'll get a better price on Wonder Boy. I'm going to complete the sweep on our little panel, and I'm taking Wonder Boy as well for the reasons that we've mentioned. Till is going to be bigger, but I think I agree with Kyle. He's going to try and swarm. And everyone remembers the Cowboy Cerrone fight. He's not a volume striker. Like, he had a boring 3-round fight with Bojan Velichkovic. He's not this. Yeah, he knocked out Cerrone quick. And Cowboy said, what Cowboy says after a loss, I didn't know who the guy was. Yada yada. It's more. That was one fight. You look at Till's history. He's not that volume striker. He's going to try and counter strike. He's going to. He might be able to play the game, Kyle, but not the whole fight.
Yeah, he's gonna get frustrated. I just think there's no way. You're in your home country too. I think that goes against you in a fight like this. And when you got two counter strikers going up against each other, the guy who has the most pressure is the guy who's going to fold first.
And if he does manage to play the game, Stephen Thompson's just better at it.
He's going to outgame him.
So Till is just live to the knockout here. I like Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. I got it at plus 105 for 2 units. Maybe I'll add a little bit more if the line gets really screwy. But
you guys think he's going to swarm, but like Sean said, we hadn't seen that aggressive Till until the Cerrone fight, and
right.
Unless he's suddenly transformed into that guy, I mean, we're potentially looking at two counter strikers staring at each other for a very long time.
I think we're 100% looking at that regardless, but this is the X factor, right? Like, fights have the X factor. The X factor for this fight for me with Darren Till is that here's what I think. I think he fell in love with what happened with Cerrone. I think that's when the fans fully fell in love with him. Fans loved him before that. When did the hype train really start chugging down those tracks? It was the Cowboy win. That's really when everything started setting sail. So yeah. I think I think he's going to try to make that happen. Maybe not as quickly, because Stephen Thompson's a hell of a lot scarier than Cowboy has ever been, let alone now. I don't know.
I don't think it's going to go that way, Tony. I think at some point he's going to get frustrated. The style of Wonder Boy is going to get to him. Even though he's like looking in a mirror, I think at some point, I'm thinking midway through round 2, that's my guess. It could be later. I think, especially if he's down on the scorecards, he's going to get pissed off and try and press the action, and that's going to lead to the knockout. I think Thompson finishes him.
I do think he'd get frustrated, but I think at that point he might shoot for a takedown instead of swarming. I don't know. That's just my
possible.
opinion.
That's
valid.
Possible.
That's valid.
All right. Let's get the Cage Warriors Plus.
Cage Warriors Plus.
It looks like our prelim headliner currently is Nordine Taleb versus Sylvia. Give me a second. I had it up. There we go. Nordine Taleb versus, is it just Claudio Silva?
It's
Claudio?
Yeah, well, it's one of those guys. It's Claudio Silva or it's Claudio Henrique da Silva.
Aha. But we're just going to say Silva and Nordine Taleb. See, Nordine Taleb, I can't say Taleb. It's always been Nordine Taleb. You can't just say the one name. Sean, I'll just kick it over to you right away.
Claudio Silva would be interesting to me if his last fight wasn't 3.5 years ago.
Yeah.
Like, he looked good. He's a good grappler. You haven't fought in 3.5 years, bro, and Nordine Taleb is a specimen. You're going to try and get him down? Good luck. I think Taleb's clearly the better striker. It's whether Claudio can get this fight to the ground. I have no confidence that he can do that, even if he wasn't on a really long turnaround. 3.5 years is very worrisome, especially in this time frame, though. I can't bet it at minus 360. Taleb's the pick here. I think he probably just pieces him up on the feet for 3 rounds to a decision. He is a tri-star guy. He's one of the more aggressive tri-star guys, but I think Taleb takes care of business here.
Tony?
I would be all over Claudio Silva, actually, if this was 2015 and he was coming off of that. What was it? The win over. It was a close fight, but even having a close fight with Leon Edwards is
It's
props
a big deal.
enough.
Yeah, props.
Yeah. But God, it's been a long time since then. Taleb, has looked amazing since then. I think he has. We haven't seen the weigh-ins yet because it's a late fight. Well, we wouldn't have seen them anyway, but we'll see the weigh-ins later. I'm interested to see. I think Taleb will be quite a bit bigger than him. And Silva, while I said I would be, all over him, he's also just kind of one-dimensional. Doesn't really have much of a striking game. And Taleb's a little bit more versatile than that, and he's capable of kind of shutting down the ground game of Silva. I think he just classic sprawl and brawler, gets his way, either late stoppage or gets a decision win.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I kicked it over to you guys, because obviously you would have a lot more to say about this than I would. The pick straight up is Nordine Taleb for basically all the reasons listed. This has been a boring episode, guys. Again, we need to find...
I can spice it up a little with something I just saw on Twitter that tilted me a little bit.
Okay, give it to me.
I host a podcast on RotoWire for DFS, and halfway through that, I found out it was going to be Alexei Oleinik versus... Fabricio Verdum, and I just totally threw me off and fucked me up. And now I literally, cause Alexei Oleinik and I just, whatever. I just saw, literally scrolling through Twitter on this episode, the new plan to headline UFC Moscow is Alexei Oleinik versus Mark Hunt.
Interesting.
Like, what in the fuck are we doing here?
A bizarre little fight. Listen, things don't. To be fair, if we want to spice things up, let me just say things don't get much spicier than Daniel Kelly, who is our next fight that we're going to discuss. We got old man Dan Kelly taking on young man Tom Breeze. Tom Breeze isn't all that young, is he? How old is he? How old are you, Tom? Tom's 26. He is young.
He's got some injuries.
It's young versus old. They both have injuries. Dan Kelly basically doesn't have knees. So, I mean, we'll see. Every time he comes out, he's like Gumby. He's just being held up with balsa wood. Did you do that when you're in like 6th grade? You make like bridges. Did anyone else do this? Was this just my school? You make bridges out of the balsa wood?
You got me off Oleinik and Hunt to talk about whatever the fuck you're talking
about. Dan Kelly's knees are held up with balsa wood. That's what we're talking about. Keep up, Sean. Dude, I won't do it anymore. I won't pick against Dan Kelly. I won't do it. I don't give a fuck who Tom Breeze is. I don't care if Tom Breeze was
Jesus,
the literal Breeze. I'm going with Dan Kelly. For no reason other than to pick against Dan Kelly is stupid. That's basically the reason why I'm going with Dan Kelly. So, for the actual analysis, let me kick it over to Tony.
Like you said, this might just bite me in the ass, but Breeze, I just think he's a really bad matchup for Dan Kelly. The size, he's going to be bigger. He's going to have the reach advantage. He's a very capable wrestler. I think he, like most guys, packs more power on the feet than Dan Kelly does.
Yeah.
I don't really know what the path to victory for old man Kelly is.
Survive, sub.
Yeah, I guess it's probably what's going to happen, honestly. But I mean, all conventional wisdom.
Tom Breeze should win this fight.
Tom Breeze.
100. Listen, in every universe, Tom Breeze should win this fight. I'm not going to pick him. I'm not doing that to myself. It's Dan Kelly. If I'd have picked Dan Kelly, if I would have picked Dan Kelly to win his last 2 fights, I think I picked him to pick one of them. I did not pick him to beat Derek Brunson, and he got knocked out. I think I picked him to beat Elias Theodorou, but Theodorou did his Theodorou magic and just Rockstar Z, who's a guy that I don't typically follow, but he made a post the other day about Elias Theodorou, who's on this card, so it's relevant.
Is he still around?
Yeah, he's still around. He made a post the other day, which was again very astute. It was something along the lines of like Elias Theodorou is the best worst fighter in UFC history, and something along those lines. And it's absolutely true. Like he's like the worst fighter, but like somehow just wins all the time. It just doesn't. No one quite understands it. But anyway, I digress. Dan Kelly, you just never know, man. You never know. Tom Breeze should win this fight, but you never know. Sean, you're picking Tom Breeze?
Yeah, I have Tom Breeze. I bet 3 units on Tom Breeze at minus 280. Tom Breeze should knock the living shit out of Dan Kelly. I'm just Dan Kelly was finished in his not the last fight. The last fight was the Theodorou fight. Who finished Dan Kelly? It was gonna bother me now.
Who finished him? Derek Brunson.
Derek Brunson, thank you. Tom Kelly, Jesus. Tom Breeze, Jesus.
I always get Tom Breeze confused with Joe Duffy, and I really don't know why.
That's a weird one. Breeze, as Tony mentioned, it's just big for the weight class. Hits hard. I'm a little worried about coming back from injury, but Dan Kelly's probably more hurt than he ever was. So literally Dan Kelly's knees are being held together. I'm going to say matchsticks. Like just front leg kick him once and make it to the end of the round. I don't think he can get back up. Like you'll have a Sean O'Malley situation going on. Like there's just Tom Breeze all day. And if you want to loudmouth bet me, and I'll rattle against Dan Kelly next week.
That is not loudmouth bet material, my friend.
I mean, you said you wouldn't pick against him.
I know. I'm picking Tom Breeze. Dan Kelly's just like the man. When you think he's going to lose is exactly when. Like, does Dan Kelly have any logical reason to be able to beat Antonio Carlos Jr.? Like, what in the world?
That fight set back ACJ, who is my guy on this podcast.
Yes.
Set him back a year from becoming champion.
Yes, it's my guy, too. I mean, I'd love him.
He's like a year because Dan Kelly could take a beating for just a savage beating for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And ACJ gassed himself out.
All right. Next up, we have a Cage Warriors Plus fight. we have a man coming off a Cage Warriors win against Nicholas Dalby, so it's at least kind of the UFC competition. And
3 weeks ago.
And he is, yes, very, very short notice, and he's taking on Brad Scott, UFC. He's been around since 2012. I don't know what to call him. His losses are again, this is kind of a weird little matchmaking card. Like, everybody on this card has all fought each other. So this guy, he's lost to Silva. His other losses are his debut is against Robert Whittaker, of all things. Also has a loss against Jocko back when Jocko was the shit. His most recent loss was against Jack Hermanson, which definitely is a big deal. That's an important little fight going into this next one. And then he was removed from was it him against Jack Hermanson? Was it his thing that he was removed, or was Jack Marshman removed? Do you remember? So he had a fight canceled because of weight cutting concerns. Was it him or Marshman?
I don't remember. I think it was Scott. I think it was Scott as well.
So, I don't know if that's going to play any type of role into this, but we shall see. But anyway, he's taking on the guy who I was talking about earlier is Carlo Pedersoli, I believe is his name.
Pedersoli.
Yeah, I was about to say, it sounds super Italian. He typically, I just wanted to make sure. He's coming in here. He has one loss in the regional scene, but he's strung together quite a few wins here, most of them by finish. He just beat Nicholas Dalby, like I mentioned, by split decision. This is a prelim fight, ladies and gentlemen. If you want like an exact representation of what a prelim fight looks like, it's this. Like, this is as middle of the road prelim as you're gonna get with the fight. I assume Brad Scott should be able to get it done here, but I also just don't know enough about this guy coming in. So If
Italian master race.
Listen, if right now this fight was booked in Cage Warriors, as Sean mentioned, are you really going to pick this other guy over Bradley Scott? No, nobody would.
I would.
And you're saying in Cage Warriors, if this fight's happening, you're picking him over.
Well, you have to. I'm picking Peter Solly to win.
Okay.
Now,
But talk to me.
Peter Solly's he's a creative striker, goes for subs. He's an entertaining guy. My big worry with him in this fight is that he fought 3 rounds against Nicholas Dalby recently. Brad Scott showed in the Harmonson fight. I think he's going to have trouble with the takedowns. It's a bad stylistic matchup where I think Brad Scott is a crisp striker and he's fine on the feet. He's not elite, but he's fine. Peter Solly has a flashier style that could present problems, and he's creative enough going for takedowns, scrambling for subs. He's actually an exciting prospect. I would consider betting him if that wasn't for that fight 3 weeks ago. I don't think Brad Scott is that good. The problem is for the first 5 to 7.5 minutes of this fight, I don't think that fight 3 weeks ago was going to be an issue. And then I think the gas tank is going to hit empty real quick. I think Peter Solly is going to need to look for a finish. Scott can be finished. That's the way I'm leaning right now, mostly because I want to see a new up-and-coming prospect. But in terms of betting, I'm staying the hell away from it. On DraftKings, Peter Solly is the favorite, by the way. He is a minus 165 favorite. I'll have some Brad Scott because it's a close fight with this weird variable that I'm having a hard time getting my head around. But I'm going to lean Peter Solly just because he's more fun. Very technical.
Tony?
I wonder who I'm picking here.
Is it Guido Canetti?
He's picking Guido Canetti for sure.
Fun facts about Pedersoli, though. He
loves tomato sauce. Sorry,
he's the sparring partner of fellow UFC fighter Di Chirico, and he's
That's
also
a minus.
He's a grandson of Bud Spencer, who's this Italian actor and just like a big movie, like big star basically over in Italy. So if he does blow up in the UFC, he'll have a lot of fans back home in Italy. But just to echo kind of what Sean said, if this was a fight that was being made on normal notice for Cemento, as he's known in Italy, which means cement, as you can probably imagine. Italians have very weird nicknames. Don't ask me why. I would, the line would probably be even bigger. It's just a bad matchup for Brad Scott, and the Italian brings, a lot of much better striking into the cage. He's very flashy on the feet, karate style, and he's also, like Sean said, got some nasty grappling that he mixes in. I just don't, I'm not sure. And I watched the fight. I watched the whole fight. Him and Dalby. It was 3 hard rounds. It wasn't like it was a kind of slow, just feeling out process. Like, these guys went at it, and I'm really not sure how he's going to be able to bounce back from that. Just a few weeks later, it seems a little crazy. UFC usually doesn't do this, but they've been doing it more often just because the roster's been so thinned out. But hopefully, this is more than just a one-deal contract, and we get to see more of him, because he is very exciting, and I'm not being biased here. He's just an exciting prospect who even in a loss, I think you'll see, if Pedersoli does lose, I think you'll see flashes of what he's going to offer, and kind of the what he brings to the cage and whatnot.
All right, we'll see. If we get nothing else, which looks like we might not, I'll gladly take one of you in the Loudmouth bet on this one. I do think Brad Scott has what it takes here, but I don't want to.
I think we're going to have one coming up.
You think so?
I think so.
Unless you're picking Trevor Smith.
No, I'm betting on, for those dedicated listeners.
You're betting on Gina Mazzani?
I'm taking the Slurpee vendor.
There it is. You're taking Gina Mazzani. I love it. All right, we have Molly McCann taking on Jillian Robertson. I have not looked into this fight whatsoever. It is a 125 fight, both of which I believe making their debut. Correct.
Nope. Jillian Robertson.
Yeah.
Wow, fought Emily Whitmire.
She did.
At the tough finale because she was on the.
That was the night of arm locks because everybody was so shitty that there's just a bunch of arm. Like it's like the most basic BJJ move. Like that's the first thing you learn is arm bars. So everyone just arm barred everybody because they all sucked. It was just like nothing you could do.
How do you really feel about it?
God, I have zero opinion on this fight.
I do.
Tony.
Go. I mean, if you haven't heard of her before and you have Fight Pass, go check it out. All her fights, will be there since it's Cage Warriors and this is Cage Warriors Plus, and you'll be able to see basically just a bunch of boxing from her. She doesn't really mess around much. She likes to get in there and punch girls in the face, and she's pretty good at it. And she's got some decent power, and she's just kind of nasty. I don't know how else to put it. She's can be over aggressive at times, and that might get her in trouble. But I can't really see someone like Jillian Robertson being the one to give her that kind of trouble. And I think we'll see many good scraps involving the lovable Meatball Molly in the future.
Meatball Molly. Good Lord.
The problem is McCann she's fighting in her home. She's from Liverpool. It's why she's making her debut here. She probably was going to get a call eventually.
Yep.
She was well on her way anyway.
Yeah, she was. This accelerated a little bit. There's fights where she's been big favorites in that she gets dragged into these close fights, and it's just weird. Like girls she should beat up on, she's in fights that just get way too close. Jillian Robertson trains an American top team. I have to imagine she's still improving. I like the grab. I mean, she's a decent grappler. I know she subbed Whitmire quickly. That was one of the ones, though. That wasn't one of the ones where Whitmire got a takedown and Robertson found an armbar on the way down. That was one of the more impressive ones where Robertson got a takedown, immediately advanced, and found, aggressively went for the submission and locked it up. I think she's legit. I'm going to lean Robertson just because I want to be a little different here, and I'm looking for underdogs. Not all the favorites are going to win. I also, that habit of McCann finding herself in close fights, and because she's a better striker, I think Robertson and ATT know that, and they're going to go in with the grappling game plan. And I think McCann can be exposed there. It's not a bet for me, but I'm actually leaning Jillian Robertson to win by decision using her grappling.
Anything else?
Nope. Let's talk about.
I guess I should have said Meatball Molly doesn't have good fight IQ. I thought I should have worked that in.
Yeah, she finds herself in these weirdly close fights. Like she's gonna, in the first 20 seconds, if she would all of a sudden try and clinch up with Jillian Robertson, it wouldn't surprise me because that's stupid.
What she does?
It's bad fight IQ, but she's exciting. Got good striking. We'll see what happens.
We have Elias Theodorou. Basically, our podcast is sponsored by him, essentially, taking on Trevor Smith.
Plus,
I am very easily taking Elias Theodorou here. The only issue with Trevor Smith is the size, but I don't think that's really going to be all that much of an issue here. So, Elias Theodorou all day, every day. I'm basically not going to pick him to lose until he is fighting like legit competition, and that's not what Trevor Smith is. I mean, he's not. I'm not going to shit on the guy, but he's not the type of competition that I'm going to pick to beat Elias Theodorou at this point. Elias Theodorou, don't get me wrong, I really truly don't think he's very good, but I don't get it, and I think he'll get it done here.
You don't think he's a good fighter or a good ring card boy?
He did pretty well as a ring card boy. Good for him for breaking down walls. Yeah. I don't have any real opinion other than Elias Theodorou is just such an awkward fighter. I just have a hard time seeing someone like Trevor Smith, who's so kind of baseline in his, like, he's just mediocre across the board, really. I mean, he does have a specialty area, but still, for the most part, he's kind of just mediocre across the board. The way you beat Elias Theodorou is, I think you got to be real specialized, and you got to be able to make that thing work. And I don't see that here. So I got Theodorou. I don't know what the line is, but I got Theodorou.
It's a very large line. Theodorou is a minus 445 favorite.
Jesus.
It's getting a little insane. That's because Smith isn't any good. Theodorou's got footwork. He's going to use the front kick to keep the takedowns of Smith away. It's not one of those kicks that can lend itself to a takedown. It's the front kick's a weapon more guys probably should use. Theodorou overuses it and gets on his bike and stays away. It's probably what he's going to do here. Coasts his way to a decision. I'm also not picking against him. It's worth mentioning on DraftKings, I'm considering Smith because he's the second cheapest fighter, and I don't think Theodorou is going to finish him. He doesn't have, a history of finishing guys, so maybe he'll rack up a couple points there. But pick him wise, the play is Theodorou by decision.
Wonderful. Tony?
Yeah, I mean, the line kind of speaks for itself. I don't know if this is like the card of long layoff returns as well, because Trevor Smith has also been out for like a whole year. Like, we got a bunch of other guys who are returning after long layoffs, at least like a year-long layoffs. So that's just kind of odd. But yeah, Trevor Smith is like a submission specialist who hasn't been able to submit anybody for a long time. So I don't know. Versus Theodorou, who's Holly Holm, boring on the feet with no power, but the judges love him. So we're gonna see another Elias Theodorou special win.
Last, but most certainly not least, we have Gina Mazzani taking on Lena Landsberg in what is sure to be just a knockout fest. Sean, you've drawn a hard line on this fight, so talk to me.
I'm picking Gina Mazzani to. Well, she was an underdog. I didn't bet it, knowing at the line. Maybe I should have. She opened up as a plus 145 favorite. 145 underdog. She is now a minus 135 favorite. So the line has moved to Mazzani in my read. It seems to agree with those betting. Lena Landsberg, she's 1-2 in the UFC and likes to block punches with her face. Like that's her one UFC win against Lucy Pudilova. She took a lot of damage. Gina Mazzani made fun of her before her debut against Sarah McManus. She delivered being awful. Got taken down and just quickly subbed out. Didn't know Mazzani had a decent ground game of her own, which didn't compare to an Olympic wrestler. Her last fight against Wei Yanan, I believe, is one of the Chinese girls. Yanan Wu. Okay, not Wei. Decent takedowns. Pudilova's got terrible takedown defense. Landsberg has terrible takedown defense. I think Mazzani can exploit that if they stay on the feet. Landsberg, like I said, blocks punches with her face. Landsberg's not going to put away Mazzani, so I'm always going to take the grappler. I've said it time and time again on this podcast. I think it's a close fight. I'm going to lean towards the grappler and the girl who doesn't block punches with her face, and maybe afterwards Mazzani can make me a cherry Slurpee.
Tony.
I'm really liking this new order, so we could put these kinds of fights at the very end.
Yeah, let's end on this bad boy.
Like, this just makes so much sense to have this at the very end, because I mean, I can't believe we're giving technical analysis on this. The one thing
you're not enthralled.
The little tiny thing that I latched onto from what Sean said. Well, I do agree that Mazzani could take her down. From what I've seen, her top control isn't very good, and I don't know how well she'll be able to actually control Landsberg when she's on the ground. I feel like Landsberg will just be able to pop back up And
Who cares?
I've seen Landsberg, land some I don't know, pretty nice knees and elbows before, and I don't know. I'll take Landsberg just to be a contrarian here.
I'll take Lena Landsberg.
This is going to be the saddest payoff next week ever.
You got Gina. Just go ahead and say it. You know how this works.
I get loudmouth bet. I will take Gina Mazzani.
And I will take Lena Landsberg.
I just can't. I'm actually excited for next week.
I don't want to do this. This is the worst I feel about a loudmouth bet in history. I would rather take this over Bradley Scott for two reasons. One, I'm slightly more confident in Lena Landsberg than I am in Bradley Scott. But also, I just think it's funny that this is the fight. Can I just say, we also have this similar conversation with a lot of women fights, or female fights. Let me just address that really quickly. This has nothing to do with like some weird sexism thing about whatever. I have no issue with women's fighting. Here's the problem with the female divisions. The gap between the top 7 and everybody else is just ginormous. Like when you have men, the difference between the top 10, top 15, and the top 25 really isn't like this ocean, depending on the division. But for the most part, you're not talking about like an ocean in between. The top, like the number 5 woman in a division and like the number 10 woman in a division could be mountains in between them, so it's just, that's why a lot of times when we get to the female fights, we're just shitting on them. These low-level female fights, I mean, low level with a capital L, capital O, capital W.
See, but you call this low level, but this is two ranked UFC fighters.
Exactly. That's
both
the point.
Both of them are ranked.
The difference between the top of the division and then just everybody else, I mean, this is at bantamweight. The difference between Amanda Nunes and Lena Landsberg is so fucking vast. Just seriously, like it's almost like they're in different sports. Like the difference between those two athletes. Yet go to 145 and look at Max Holloway versus someone that's like in the top 15. Give me your 13 or your 12.
Just to give more context, number 14 in at featherweight, Duho Choi, number 13 Miles Jury, number 12 Zavit Magomed Shapirov. So
yeah, if Shapirov fought Holloway next week, people would be picking Shapirov to get the win there. People would absolutely be. I'm not saying he'd be the favorite, but I'm saying people would most certainly pick him. If Lena Landsberg fought Amanda Nunes tomorrow, not a chance in hell anyone's picking Lena Landsberg. Amanda Nunes is a minus 1,500 in that fight. So it's
and there's
just
value in that line.
Sure. So that's the thing. That's why I just hate it, because I feel like when we do these breakdowns, a lot of times the female fights get shit on. But this is why. It's just, unless you're talking about number 2 fighting number 5, it's hard not to, because it's just such low level skill fights that it's just, I don't know.
There's one coming up. I went to the schedule just to try and give some context to it. I know, don't we have Claudia Gadelha and Keisha Torres coming up?
Yeah, that's a UFC 225, which I'll be live.
That's going to be a great fight. But when you go to the prelims, there's actually one I'm a little interested in, thanks to Tough. We have Lauren Murphy against Sajara Eubanks next week.
See, that's fine.
I'm a little interested in that
I won't
fight.
shit on that. I won't shit on that whatsoever. I got nothing. But that's like top 5 in that division, basically.
Yeah, that's also headlining the FS1 prelims. And
people want to see what Eubanks looks like, right?
Exactly.
The early prelims, we have Jessica Aguilar and Jody Escobar, and we can shit on that one.
Now you just ruined everything.
Yep.
Yeah,
I've ruined all of it. Kind of like how Tony, if you follow Tony on Twitter, I'll give him his quick plug at Big Tone MMA. If you're not going to fucking watch Tough live, don't be on Twitter, because Tone is going to fucking ruin it for you. I was pissed last week. or last night, I was so mad.
I should have put a spoiler thing. My bad.
It's one of the. And that's not. I mean, it's one of the. I was on Twitter, and obviously I follow a ton of MMA people, and I went, god damn it. So when I was on Twitter at the DFS Sniper with one S, looking at Big Tone's Twitter, I got a little pissed off. But that's
even Suman was mad at me just for tweeting out the result. I was like, don't shoot the messenger. You
Suman Mokhtarian got mad at you.
Not mad, but he just tweeted like a gif at me, like, really? But it's like, and I really think that he either comes back as an injury replacement or is on the tough finale, because he is way too happy about being off of the show. I don't know what happens there.
He could be the one who replaces Pena, no?
He could be, yeah. He could still, he might know he has a spot on the tough finale and a UFC contract still. I really don't know, but he is way too happy and way too UFC kind of gung-ho in his interviews right now for me to believe he's off.
Yeah,
completely.
Interesting.
Go watch Tough Guys. It is a good season.
It is.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's all we have for you. Tune in next week. I will most certainly be back then, but I will start phasing out. We'll introduce probably a fourth member of the podcast for maybe a week, and then a week or two maybe, and then I will disappear. But you can hear me
for 2-hour episodes, boys and girls.
You can hear me on the rest of my shows, of course. I'm still going to be hosting the Fred and Kyle show on this channel. I'm still going to be hosting MMA Yesterday on this channel, and we'll still be periodically doing Fight Companions. We will not be doing one for this card because I am a realtor now, for those of you who don't know, so I got to do open houses during when this card's taking place, so I will most certainly not be doing a Fight Companion. So, all right, guys, we will see you next week. If this is the only episode you listen to, we'll hear you next week for UFC Utica. Correct? Utica? That's next week? Fantastic, guys. See you next week.